Right.
We are live.
And we're live.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, everyone. It's a sunny day. I was about to post on my social medias my view that I had yesterday morning, waking up to palm trees and a glassy lake versus this morning. I mean, I suppose it was a glassy lake as well, but frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like in Calgary? Sorry,
It's minus 32 and 12 inches of snow.
Well, that's too
And
bad.
there's a wind chill. I don't know what the wind chill is, but taking the boys to daycare this morning, it's cold.
Yeah. Well, I am streaming from Vancouver this morning, and it is bright and sunny. As you might be able to see behind me.
That's all we can see.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Well, anyway, it's about -5, but bright, sunny, and quite nice.
Yeah, here minus 25 with a minus 41 wind chill.
Ouch.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
It'll warm up though tomorrow.
So,
yeah.
Good. That's when I come back.
Speaking of what's behind you, some of the guys were asking what's behind me, and I just wanted to address it quickly. This is the way Alex, my wife's brain works, is crazy mind maps. And
I was saying it looks like
association.
If you've ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the mailroom episode.
Pepe Silvio, yeah.
Yeah, Pepe Silvio. Yeah. There's pins with red strings in them.
It's like she's solving cold cases.
Well, in some cases she is, perhaps.
Yeah, sometimes. Who didn't do the laundry? Who?
So Dan, what are we talking about today?
Well, we one thing, and maybe we'll try to be brief on this, although it could be a pretty deep discussion. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we said, what are some good locational attributes that make for good local real estate? So, I mentioned earlier, I woke up to palm trees and a lake the other day. I think, that's one of those things. Having a location that is hard to replicate, and what I mean by that is, if in a maybe typical suburb, they'll have probably 80% of the lots in that suburb that have roughly the same setting, right? They're all backing onto other houses or backing onto alleyways, and there's nothing terribly different about them. And so those are maybe less appealing. And then you get into that 20% and 5% that have views or on lakes or maybe backing onto parks and things like that. So those are some of the things that a lot of people maybe don't necessarily look for, but are on the nice to have list when they're looking for real estate.
What's the impact that has depending on the type of market you're in? Is it like if you're in a hot market? I guess the question is it subjective at all, or is that something you can put sort of a hard number on depending on what the attribute is? Does the value of a view go up in a hot market and come down in a cold one, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's I think when you're appraising houses anyway, or when we evaluate houses, it's a really good point, Michael. That you can compare square footage, you can compare typical building like a bungalow to a bungalow, 1,000 square foot bungalow in Renfrew to 1,000 square foot bungalow in Varsity, and you can draw a pretty subjective comparison. But when you talk about views and other attributes like that, they're subjective value. And in a hot market, those things go for $1 million view can literally be $1 million view. And in a cold market, you really don't get much for it. It gets discounted simply because of market conditions. So, yeah, when you've got hot views, when you're on the river or on the water, those kinds of things add a lot of value in a hot market. So they get pretty frothy.
Yeah. We'll come back to this, a little bit, but we just touching on trees as well. I mean, I guess that's not locational, but Is there anything else, locational attributes that make for good real estate?
Yeah, well, and I'll touch on this briefly, and Sano or Mike, you can add. So I guess the city of Calgary, they've got a program right now where they're giving away 500 free trees to each quadrant in the city, and it was immediately booked up in one day in the Northwest, and I'm sure it's going to be the same thing for each other quadrant, and that is part of the initiative in the city of Calgary to double the tree canopy in the city. Over, I don't know the time frame, but probably over the next, let's say, decade. I'll arbitrarily pick a number. And as I think, Sano, you've pointed out, it's one of the very best ways to increase value in a little micro area sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done my research. We used to do a lot of referrals, people coming into town. So what we would do is we would drive them through. The first day typically is spent. You have a new recruit from Texas or from Toronto, and we'd be driving them through different areas of town, and they'd say, what do you think about this type of neighborhood? And I have a favorite street or avenue, I'll say, in Crescent Heights. That's like 7th, 8th Avenue there, where you have the elm-lined streets where the trees touch in the middle of the road, and it's just, the houses are nothing really special, all due respect to Crescent Heights. Well, a lot of them are Sears catalog homes, and front porch on some of them. Very typical, nothing special. And without fail, every client would say, this is the kind of neighborhood we love. And it had more to do with the tree-lined streets than it did, anything else, but they'd overwhelmed them. And so following up on that, we, when we were involved in the our community association, at least, we went on a campaign to replant the forest in our neighborhood. And when I was on the Calgary Real Estate Board, we actually attempted to put together a program where realtors could gift their clients closing gifts with trees from the city of Calgary. And we had a program where it was very affordable to be able to gift those trees to a client who just moved into a new home. And when's the best time to plant a tree in your yard? Well, yesterday, or last year, I guess. So that program, it kind of lost momentum, and I timed out, and so it never got any more traction. But there are other people on the board that could maybe pick that up. I know one particular guy that could, and who knows? Maybe we could reinvigorate it. I think it's a great idea. Trees have a lot of value. Leave it there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on. We have, I think, a lot on our potential agenda here. So, just wanted to touch on some stats, and I think we've been telling this story for the last couple of weeks, but it's the number of listings right now is at a low level, and compared to 2 years ago, we have the same number of sales through February, virtually the same, I think, within 1%. And almost 40% fewer listings than we did in 2021. Using 2021 as a benchmark, I think it was maybe more typical in terms of volume, where last year was record-setting on just about every front. So, so that's an interesting stat, and I think that I'm still seeing that the lack of inventory is driving activity. I had an open house last weekend, and I think we were at the time the only house, maybe one of 2 homes for sale in the community. And there was a point in the open house where I think I counted 24 sets of shoes.
Whoa!
Really?
Or like it was incredible. It was a parade of people coming through, lining up to get in. So
Did you shuffle the shoes? That's an old realtor trick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last longer.
I got myself a nice pair of Blundstones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I think that it was really that we were the only thing to buy at the time. That if there was 6 or 7 other homes, we probably wouldn't have seen that amount of activity. But I think people are just sort of hungry for homes.
Yeah. So what would stop people from putting their homes on the market right now, if they were inclined? There's always that thing they think, well, maybe it'll be better in the spring. Maybe it'll be better when the trees come out, when the trees leaf out. Maybe I'll wait for that. But yeah, anybody want to comment on that? When is the best time to get it on? If in a market like this?
Yesterday, usually.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Anyone else?
I think so. I think that that's a number that you can. So the level of inventory is something that you can look at and is, I don't want to say predictable, but it's something that you can react to fairly quickly.
Yeah.
If you're inclined to wait for, the only reason you'd wait is price, right? If the price is going to be better next week, then you might try to time that. But that's something that is really hard to predict. But the level of homes is something that is known today.
Yeah.
Even the price is something that is, even if there are 3 homes similar to yours that sold this week, you can be fairly certain of the price, but that's, a negotiated kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think the level of homes is like, if you're going to base your decision on anything, it's that, outside of any timing requirements, school year, things like that.
Yeah. And I guess to get your, if you, for example, this week has been a cold snap and 12 inches of snow, it sometimes throws people off, but the reality is by Sunday, it's going to be 2 degrees and it's going to be beautifully sunny. Actually, in fact, it's blue skies right now. It's amazing how quickly things change. And so if there's any doubt of, if your plan is to get your house listed, get it on, and get it organized and, do all those things, so that it's all staged and ready to go. Because it's amazing how, only a few days, things change significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And inventory, you always want to put it on when there's less inventory. If somebody's looking for a home and they have 10 to choose from, or the market is such that they have 2 to choose from, your chances increase exponentially that you'll be taken off the market and that you'll get a good price and maybe even get multiple offers.
Yeah.
Which gets you some of that frothy value that we were talking about earlier. That objective value where people just, pay more than it's worth, perhaps.
We have a great question from Kenneth Lynn in the chat here. He's asking, is it advisable to look for a new home and list your current home for sale simultaneously? And that is, the answer to that question varies wildly depending on the market, right? It's if you're in a market like this and you need to, if you need to find another home, you might be better served to look first, find a home, and kind of angle for a bit of a longer possession on that, then put your home up for sale. Just because we're seeing homes sell so quickly these days.
Is there any value that I have some clients right now that are in this predicament where they had their home listed, they took it off, but they are. What I would actually like to see them do is put it on with longer possession, and then be able to go into the marketplace with cash in hand and be able to go almost condition free if possible. Is there? I guess it's hard to say exactly, but which strategy maybe have you seen be more successful? Is buy first and then sell aggressively with a quick possession or longer possession, or sell first, go with cash in hand?
Well, I think there's a difference if you're buying through a builder. I think that's a big differentiating factor. And as we've advised some clients recently, that if builders, you can expect are going to take longer than sooner to get your home finished. So even if you have an order in for a home to be built, it's a reasonable expectation that with supply chain right now and cost increases and things like that, that it's going to take longer for your home to complete, might even run over budget a bit. That's not unreasonable to expect. So I would, you might, if you're going to put your home on, you might want to wait a little bit longer to sell it because of that. And the normal sort of possession period is not notwithstanding the gravity towards the end of the school year, which often people, target, is usually like 60, 90 days, right? So, so you're getting, if you're just approaching that, maybe err on the side of a bit longer because you can expect a delay from your builder. That kind of feed those things into your strategy.
Yeah,
Right.
I think also, like in doing your financial calculations of what you can, I think it's so important to be very conservative. I mean, there are some classification of buyers that really, really stretch, and they're trying to thread the needle. And I think those are the buyers and sellers, that we have to really rein in, I guess, to ensure, because if everything is hinging upon selling for X amount of dollars and you can't sell it for anything less, and also you're trying to stretch into a new bracket of home, it's just a recipe for sort of failure, like any way you slice it. So, I think it's really important to sort of like, have just realistic, conservative analysis.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And, timing is always interesting, right? I mean, Michael, I think you're working with some clients who have sold their home and looking for a new one, and but they have a place to stay in the meantime, right? Like they have fully moved out of the old place, staying with family. And so it really depends on the flexibility you have in housing there and options. I don't know, maybe you have a rental that you can move into for a short while, but there's there's so much that goes into that decision. It's not a one size fits all solution for sure.
Yeah.
Also,
right. It's really not giving away leverage. You're right. Like having a housing option, like just in case you don't have this urgency to find a place, so that you maintain leverage over any potential offer or negotiation situation. I think it's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now, we have some cases right now on the books where clients had to take an early possession to lock into the rate because rates were going up at a pretty rapid rate. So they had locked into the rate. Well, the sellers, they took early possession and the sellers are renting back because the sellers couldn't move out that quickly. So, those kinds of creative, I guess, negotiations can happen to make sure everybody stays whole.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, great comments. So I guess we touched a little bit on the cold weather a little while ago here, and just to follow up on that, is like how much impact does the cold weather have on the market? Is there an anticipated recovery time, and is the cold weather maybe to the benefit of either a buyer or seller in today's market?
Okay, I'll start. So with my buyers right now, just in a small time horizon of a few days, I think it is like when it's really cold and when it's really snowy, I think it is an opportunity for buyers to seize upon, to get out there and to be doing showings and to be working with and placing offers. With that said, on the listing side, I think it's not really a big deal. I think on the listing side, you've got to actually kind of like almost be patient, I guess. Whereas on the buying side, I think you got to try and seize the opportunity and rush sellers, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think that's good advice. That I mean, if you're, I don't know, if you were going to be one of 10 showings in a week and now you're one of 5 because of the cold weather, I mean that the lack of showings, it probably puts some doubts in a seller's mind about what they can achieve in a sale. And yeah, I mean, to your point about leverage earlier, it doesn't hurt the buyer for sure. So yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on that, or should we move on?
I think it does cool things off. People are less inclined to go outside, and for showing, certainly it's not nearly as fun to go tramping around in the snow. And so if you maybe do have a buyer who's unperturbed about that and you can still go out, you might find yourself a bit of space, like a little room to breathe if you want to go out and still continue to look in those kind of conditions. For the sellers, and I think I would echo, as long as you can maybe get on and still push your sellers to be maybe even just a touch more aggressive, to say, listen, we just need to give it a little extra nudge to stand out. Maybe that's the thing, that when things do pick up again in a week, when the weather warms up, then you really are the best thing that a buyer could buy, and you just do that much better for it.
I think it's a good time to, in this frigid climate, to go out and look at homes and discover any, good craftsmanship or any flaws in construction. If you see frost in the corners,
Oh, yeah.
now's the time to see it. You may not see it otherwise until, a year after you take possession.
Yeah.
And an inspector doesn't often do that. So one of the things that we've done in the past is we've taken out, on some showings, we've taken our little infrared device that you plug into your phone. It's actually pretty handy, and it's not a bad thing, especially if you're down to, maybe between two houses and you really want to do a kind of a second showing. You're doing a closer inspection in the winter time, and even in the summer, I guess you can do it. You use it also on a really hot day, just to look at the construction. I mean, if you can see all the studs through the walls and the ceiling, the joists through the ceilings, it tells you there's maybe an issue there.
That's actually a really good point. I had a buyer deal fall apart 2 weeks ago, partly because there was still some snow, but it was quite a warm day, and there was a lot of melt, and it showed some flaws in like the roof, the gutters, and then also some of the slope. There was quite a lot of pooling water all over the place, and our inspector did a good job of explaining what was happening and how you mitigate it in the future, but it definitely cast some doubts in the buyer's mind, and they just said, you know what, given the amount of maybe extra work that's now evident, we're not ready to go forward with this. So they backed out. But the days where it's either raining a lot or it's super cold actually do absolutely tell you a lot of stuff about the home.
Yeah.
So there you go. Best time to look at a house is during inclement weather.
The worst weather tells you the most about the home.
Well, that's a great point, both of you. Like during our insane cold snaps, it really weeds out the pretenders from the houses that are built well, and those are attributes or characteristics of a home that you cannot really, really gather from nice days.
Yeah, totally.
That's good.
Yep.
Wow. What a kernel of truth right there.
Well, do you guys want to talk on any more real estate issues, or should we move on to some personal stuff?
Hey, you're in charge.
Well, maybe just really quickly, on the horizon in organized real estate, I think it is interesting to talk about what's been tabled by CREA, the Calgary Real Estate Association, and what they are proposing to do with realtor.ca. So Dan, you're Dan or Sano, you guys are both more involved with the organized side of real estate. Do one of you want to touch on what's proposed and what the response has been from the real estate community?
I'll let Daniel take that lead.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's been proposed is really only a high-level presentation at this point. The Canadian Real Estate Association is proposing that realtor.ca be spun off as a wholly owned or majority-owned for-profit company with outside investment and expertise. The interesting thing is an article in I want to say in Inman, or the Real Estate magazine. There was an interview with the former chair, and it's interesting that when asked how is the company going to be profitable, there was no plan for revenue, and so that's an interesting insight when you're making a fairly significant move with one of the most valuable assets in real estate technology today, to say it's going to be for profit, but we don't know how. So that's interesting. I think that the consultation process with the associations and boards is just beginning. It hasn't really started yet, but we'll kind of, it remains to be seen what the plan is and how it gets rolled out if it does.
Yeah, I would say that at first blush, it's not. I fail to see the value in it. We were at the table when realtor.ca was formed. I think that was one of the best things that we've done in Canadian real estate, and know that every other regime in the world, like you go to Australia, if you go to the United States, we don't have one collective realtor advertising portal that is owned by the association, and the value of that we actually recognize at the real estate council. We recognize the value to the public of that. The value is that the public can go to one portal, they can see everything that's available, have some confidence that they're viewing all of the product that's relatively available, without, for example, if you're in, without going to like 5 different MLS sites, or having to search 5 different competing MLS sites, as you do in like California or in most states in the United States, or having to pay an inordinate amount of money to participate in an advertising portal that has critical mass and has a captured market, like I understand in Australia, where it costs like $15,000 or $20,000 a month to advertise on these sites, and that gets passed on again to the public. So we have in Canada a really affordable vehicle. The public knows that if they go to realtor.ca, they see pretty much everything that's listed by realtors anyway, and there's a big value in that. I don't know how spinning it off, and I don't know enough about it in fairness to Korea. Maybe there's something that counters that argument. I haven't heard it yet, but my first take is, I think we have a pretty good thing. We should leave well enough alone.
Yeah. How would it, like, I don't see it how privatizing it or spinning it off and making it private would benefit consumers, when it's just this like very seamless platform. I shouldn't say seamless, but the fact that in one spot you can see all listings across the entire country in the same format. All the data is presented in the same way, so that the consumers can, like, it's a lot easier in that respect, rather than like kind of like sort of dicing it up into some feudal, sort of like I don't know, segmented sort of situation.
Maybe Dan can expound on, like, what was the rationale for privatizing Pillar 9? Is there anything you could peel off of that provides a rationale for MLS.ca?
No. So Pillar 9, for those watching, is basically Krebs took our in-house IT department that was managing the MLS system, spun off a private company called Pillar 9 that had all of the boards except for Edmonton in Alberta as its shareholders, or stakeholders, I should say. And because the idea was that we had 10 MLSs running independently within Alberta with virtually all the same data, and 10 contracts with a MLS provider, 10 contracts with a showing service and a lockbox provider. And the idea was to centralize that into one company that could manage it for all of Alberta. So that, and it wasn't necessarily privatized. It's still entirely owned by all of the boards and associations. There's no outside investment there. And so it's separate. It's meant to be for profit. The Pillar 9 company does have outside clients through Saskatchewan, Ontario, Nova Scotia, I think, that they provide services for and collect revenue, and that helps offset the cost for the shareholders. So that's, maybe the nugget we can get from Pillar 9 is that there could be potential revenue sources from realtor.ca that would offset costs to operate realtor.ca for the membership. what scares me is that the revenue sources traditionally, if you look at other listing portals, is selling leads and advertising. And neither one of those, in my view, are welcome on realtor.ca. And so if those aren't on the table, what else is there? And you could say
it would have to be listing fees or
maybe data, selling data. Again, neither of which I'm terribly fond of. Maybe aggregate data. There could be an argument made that you could take a lot of the collective data garnered by realtor.ca in terms of sales, package that up and sell the packaged information. But
what prohibits us from doing that now? What do we have to do?
I don't know. I understand from the interviews that have been reported on there's bureaucracy and politics.
Mm-hmm.
Is what is holding that up. And so the thought is by turning it into a for-profit company, we're going to mitigate those. Yeah. I've never been involved really with realtor.ca or CREA to much extent, so I don't know what those hurdles are right now.
I know that having sort of been on the board of the MTC that we set up I think back in 05 or 6, maybe 05, an app platform, or the strategy was to set up an app platform, and the rationale was that by setting up an app platform, we would have all the data, we would allow that data to be used by third parties, like guys, programming in their garage, that could innovate and use our data. So the notion was allow outside parties to innovate, use our data for the benefit of realtors and the public. The first thing that happened in that direction was adding walk score to realtor.ca. And that was a good example of how you could use our data to provide, some synergy. So it never got much traction beyond that. We have things like local logic on there right now, but it doesn't, we haven't taken it far enough. And so the point I just want to make is that perhaps, allowing that greater innovation is a good thing. It was always a notion that we had. But maybe there's better ways of doing it than privatizing.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that the tool does need innovation. I think it's the centralized piece is what places it as the market leader, not the technology itself. And I think to innovate on that technology, it only helps realtors in our brand and so the realtor.ca tool. So,
I was just going to say that maybe the analogy for the other fractured marketplaces or like MLS listing sites is trying to look for commercial properties here. So you do have realtor.ca where you can find commercial, but then there's CoStar. Then you also have to go through to every one of the individual larger commercial houses and look on their individual websites to see what exists for commercial properties. Yeah. And I have a tab in my browser that is probably 15 websites long, where if I'm doing a real dig for something commercial, I have to scour 15 different websites to find what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So that, Dan, I think you're right. The real value is the centralized location of it and having it be a one-stop shop for at least residential.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point on the commercial side.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to come up on our time here pretty quick. Just wanted to step into any personal stuff. Mike, you talked about your office already.
Yeah. My office in my wife's mind.
Yeah. If anybody else has anything, jump in. I'll just share my thoughts on. I was in Phoenix this week for a couple of days and got the chance to go to the Mullet Arena, they call it, the Mullet Arena, which was probably aptly named, near ASU, and it was a cool place. I mean, even at its relatively small size, it's like 5,000 or 8,000 seats there. Every seat was like you're sitting up against the glass. It was such a small arena that it was a really cool experience. Felt like you're, in the lower bowl. Everything's in the lower bowl, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Saddle Dome. So it was a pretty neat place and good atmosphere. Coyotes fans are well, it was half Flames fans, like everything in Phoenix, but yeah, it was a cool spot. Came home with a couple T-shirts, so
Nice.
Right on.
And a win.
and a win. Yeah, it was. They had to grind that one out, unfortunately. Our goaltending was not strong that night, but we managed to get 60 shots on net and come out with a few goals out of it.
Nice.
So,
Michael
Yeah.
B.
Oh, I don't know. I'm the noise that you hear sometimes in the background. We've got a few bunnies, and we've got a bunny cage in our office here, and so every once in a while they chase each other. So I apologize. That's my personal comment. So they're pretty cute. I won't show them right now, but anyone can DM me if you want more info on picking up one of our bunnies.
Are they breeding or?
We had one litter, and then we're getting the mother spayed pretty quick here in the next few weeks. And so we've got, I think, one more bunny for sale. We've got 2 spoken for, and then one more is ready. So feel free to message me if anyone is interested.
free range.
It's a little side hustle, huh?
That's right. Yeah. No, real money making endeavor.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, the price of food, of human food is, I think we spend with 4 kids, I think we spend $1,500 a month, which is just insane. And then you add on another 200 or more dollars of bunny food, which we enjoy, but holy smokes, they poop a lot, and so it's just another thing that we got to worry about.
Yeah. Well, I have this innate, as you know, I have this innate ability to predict the weather. So I zoomed out to Vancouver just before the weather broke last Sunday, and I'm back. Of course, because I know it's going to warm up, I'm back tomorrow. So, yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah,
It's been great. I get the opportunity to work from out here, and I've actually been working with a few new clients as well, and talk a bit about Real Broker, which is the great brokerage that we work with. So it's been it keeps it entertaining and exciting and fresh, and yeah, I get a lot of points.
yeah. And I see, a few people have made further comments. Feel free to ask us any further questions. Those are great.
And maybe just a quick shout out, Kenneth. Thanks for your questions earlier. Mahmoud Hassan, thanks for chiming in, and Dwayne Murray, one of our, of course, favorite mortgage brokers at RBC.
Yeah.
Good morning to you all.
Yeah.
I guess
well,
with that,
well,
sign off.
With all that, we will say adieu.
Yeah.
All
We'll
right.
be back in a couple of weeks. Okay. Thanks everyone for
See you
chiming in.
guys.
Have a
See ya.
good weekend. Stay warm.
Yeah.